Hello, whether you're new to flight simulation or a veteran, getting good landings consistently is something that eludes many simulator pilots. Hopefully with the information I provide in my next few videos, I will help you land better more consistently. The first step to start would be to configure your controls properly. I won't be discussing this as there's other information out there that can explain it far better than I can. What I will focus on is actually flying the aircraft. As you can see in these first few clips, many of the procedures that I use can be used in a variety of aircraft. The information provided in these videos will be very basic, aimed purely at the home simulator pilot. No information in these videos is to be used for real-world flying. In the next and last clip is me actually flying a 1978 Piper Archer II in a gusty crosswind. Okay, so here I have the Cessna 172 Skyhawk in my flight sim. This particular model is by A2A Simulations. I'm going to use this model as my demonstration model. You can fly the default Cessna the exact same way. First thing I'm going to have a quick talk about is the flaps. A lot of simulator pilots will use flaps to slow an aircraft down, effectively using them as brakes. This is a very incorrect use of the flaps. Flaps are not to be used as brakes. They're designed to add lift. With this lift comes drag, which does slow an aircraft down, but they're not brakes. They are there to add lift. Why would we want to add lift to a wing that already has lift? This is to allow that wing to fly slower, safer. So the idea of landing a plane obviously is to land at the slowest possible speed. Now how do flaps add lift? Very simple. I'm not going to get into the science of it, but basically they increase the camber of the wing. So without flaps, from the leading edge to the trailing edge of the wing, there's a slight curve, and this curve is called the camber. With the flaps lowered, that curve is quite significant, so the camber is increased greatly. This increases the lift as well. So that is how flaps work, and that is the primary function of flaps. It is to add lift, which allows the aircraft to fly slower, safer. Can you land without flaps? You certainly can. In strong windy conditions, you may choose to not use flaps. Not using the flaps means you land at a slightly faster speed. Faster speed means more air over the control surfaces, so ailerons, elevator and rudder. And that means a bit more control authority over the aircraft. Also, you may suffer an electrical failure of the flap system, which means you can't use the flaps there. So that's a very basic overview of the flaps. Now I'll head into the cockpit and have a quick overview of some of the instruments and help you understand them better, which will also help you land better. So in the cockpit here of the instrument panel of the 172, we have the primary 6 flying instruments. This is all I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the engine instruments or the navigation instruments. So we start with the airspeed indicator. Airspeed indicator has some markings on it. The red line is the never exceed speed. Under no circumstance whatsoever are you to exceed that speed. If you exceed that speed, according to the manufacturer, the aircraft may simply break apart. The yellow range is the caution range. If you go into that speed range, the air must be perfectly smooth, no turbulence whatsoever. The green portion of the airspeed indicator is the standard normal operating range of the aircraft. The white arc indicates the flap operating range. I'll go a bit more into that in a second. Now, how flaps add lift? We can see here that according to the manufacturer, without flaps, the aircraft will stall at approximately 45 knots. If we use full flaps, according to the manufacturer, the aircraft will stall at approximately 35 knots. Again, we can fly slower, safer. That is what flaps do. Note how the white arc ends at 85 knots. If we again look more in depth to the Aircraft Pilot Operating Handbook, we'll see that the Cessna state that this operating arc here, the white arc, is more applicable to the 20 to 30 degree flap settings. So with 20 degrees of flaps or 30 degrees of flaps, we cannot exceed 85 knots without risking flap failure. Now, depending how the flaps fail, this can be catastrophic. And by that I mean, if the flaps fail a certain way, you can catastrophically lose control of the aircraft and not regain control at all. However, can we use flaps at speeds faster than 85 knots? Yes. According to the handbook, we can use 10 degrees of flaps up to a speed of 110 knots. If you want to use 20 or 30 degrees flaps, we need to slow down into the white arc. So that is the airspeed indicator. Over here we have the artificial horizon. The top few lines on the artificial horizons are the bank angle in 10 degree increments, so 10, 20, 30 degrees. The far line over here is 60 degree angle of bank. You don't really need to be going past 30 degrees in standard flight. The markings in the middle indicate nose pitch or attitude. So nose up pitch or attitude, nose down attitude or pitch. The marking in the middle indicates the plane's current position relative to the horizon. Now, you only want to glance at that instrument at the horizon, basically for an indication of bank angle. In the flight that we're going to do, we're going to be looking outside of the aircraft. Over to the right of the artificial horizon, we have the altimeter. Pretty easy to understand that. You have hundreds of feet per minute, so 2, 4, 6, 800 feet per minute. Just feet, sorry. Then we have 1,000 feet. The big needle indicates thousands of feet, little needle indicates hundreds of feet. Below that, we have the vertical speed indicator. This gives us an indication by how fast we are climbing or descending. In this case, it's feet per minute. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 feet per minute up to 2,000 feet per minute. The next instrument is the heading indicator or directional gyro. Now, before we take off, we align this instrument with our magnetic compass, and this gives us an idea or tells us which way the aircraft is facing. In this case, we're currently facing at 334 degrees, which is correct. It's aligned with the magnetic compass. To the left of that, we have the direct turn coordinator. Now, the turning coordinator is fairly simple. It tells us if we're in a left-hand or right-hand bank or turn, and how much rudder to use. To keep the turn coordinated, we use either left or right rudder to keep that ball in the middle. If the ball's off to the left, use left rudder. If it's off to the right, use right rudder. That's a very basic explanation of the turn coordinator and the instruments on the 172. So next video I'll talk about a traffic pattern and I'll fly one. Now this is where your landing will start. A good landing starts by flying a good pattern around the airfield you want to land at. So that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.